welcome everybody to the SoxProspects.com podcast, the web's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you all for listening. My name is Chris Hadfield. I am the executive editor of Sox Prospects. I'm joined as always by our director of scouting, Ian Kundal. And Ian, to open the show this week, my question for you is, I guess my question for you is, how do you concentrate on a podcast when you have a screaming cat running around your office in which you're recording? But
don't have a cat.
Don't have fair.
Be
fair.
Allergic to cats, then you have no interest in getting one.
I mean, I am allergic myself. I just deal with it.
Sounds like a you problem.
My question for you is, on a scale of 1 to the top of the scale, which is what you probably actually are, how pumped are you for the Sox Prospects trip to Fort Myers next week?
I am quite excited to get down there and start watching baseball.
Hell yeah. Let's go. We are recording this on Wednesday, March the 8th. We are going to be down in camp. You have the longest tenure down there, and you're the 15th through the 22nd that you're in camp, right?
Yeah.
Yep. What? You're looking at me like I shouldn't have said that.
I don't really want to give specific dates, but that's fine.
I mean, you're going to be tweeting from the field.
Yeah, but that's fine.
Did you want to surprise everyone?
No, I don't know. I just keep it on the deal.
Well, it's not like I'm giving people our hotel. Just tell them we're going to leave a room key.
No, stay away from me. I don't like people, so I don't want people knowing where I am. It's true. Even though they're going to know where I am. But they sometimes don't, because sometimes I don't tweet until after the game is over.
It's true. It's true. It's very true. Although you would have had first hit. Anyway, whatever. Anyway, we're pumped. We're going to be down there. Getting in on the 15th. Some combination of people from the website will be in town from the 15th through the 22nd that may or may not include Ian Kundal. And again, thank you all for your support of the website and the podcast, because that's what allows us to do this. So you can continue doing your support of our show. A couple of ways: rate and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever it is that you listen to the show. Support us on patreon.com/SoxProspects. And of course, you can send us your emails at podcast@SoxProspects.com, because we want to talk about what you all want to hear about. And today we're going to talk about, there's a bunch of stuff happening. We've got some takeaways. We've got spring training games that we've been watching on television. Then they go really, they're peppy with the pitch clock. I think at this point, everyone's in on the pitch clock who's actually watched a game, especially if you've now watched the game tonight against Puerto Rico. And
the pitch clock is the best thing for awesome. Major League Baseball ever.
It's so good. I think Shaughnessy say like the top three innovations or like additions to Major League Baseball in the past century were like Jackie Robinson, the pitch clock, and one other thing. And it was like, okay, I don't know about that, but like
that's a little take.
Yeah, it was a take. Yeah.
No, I mean, it has made the game so much more watchable. Like, no one wants to watch 4 hours of spring training baseball. Let's be honest. Like, not the people there don't want to watch it. Because if you ever go to these spring training games, by the end of the game, no one's there anyway. Like, just make it a nice compact 2:15 to 2:45, and that's pretty much like, I think every Red Sox game has been played in that window.
Yes. Yep.
And the thing, I was just say, the thing that I like is we're not giving anything back to get the pitch clock. Like, the game, we're still getting 8 to 6 games with 25 combined hits and 10 combined walks, and it's 2.5 hours instead of 3 hours and 45 minutes. Like, that's so much better. And yeah, I just think it's so much more watchable.
And that's the thing. It's like, look, it has nothing like the thing is, it's not necessarily the length of game. The length of game is a positive. It's not quite as much of a imposition on your time to watch a game, right? And I say this as someone who works past 6 p.m. a lot / most weekdays, right? But it's more that you're not sitting there for 45 seconds between pitches. I mean, dude, I remember last year you'd go into MLB TV, right? And you would click the move ahead 15 seconds button, and you'd be at the next pitch, because it had to be, because of the pitch clock. It was beautiful.
Well, it's like going to games. I used to have time in between pitches before the pitch clock to like actually like do things. Like, I'd look down and like, I could like write a note, or like these days it's like I barely have enough time to even write like a very, very brief thing in between pitches. Like, often I just wait until there's like a foul ball or something where there's a longer reset. Like,
exactly.
And at the major league level, it's made it so much more watchable in the sense that like you used to have time to like cook an egg in between pitches for certain players. Like you can just get up, take a walk around the kitchen, throw the egg on, give it a quick little fry. Like
Hmm.
now it's like you don't even have time to go on Twitter in between pitches. It's great. Like I
Hmm.
watch the entire inning and then I'll go on my phone after the inning's over. It's
Right,
fantastic.
right. It's beautiful. Yeah. So the pitch clock is here to stay, but we're going to talk about takeaways from games. We're going to talk about some injuries in camp. We're going to talk about some players who are making a push to make the major league club. Baseball America released its organization rankings. We've got some thoughts on that. A couple other transactions, but first, Ian, I guess let's get into games. Let's get into what we're seeing down there, and I guess just takeaways that you have. And maybe the way to do this is I'll just start naming names based on what I'm seeing, and I've got the stats from spring training pulled up here, and we can just kind of throw some names out there and talk about them. I guess one that really is jumping off the page to me so far, hitting 444, 500, 833 in 7 games, is Tristan Casas. We knew that he was going to be up all year. I thought that they might ease him in, hitting like 7th or something. Casas, he hit 7th against Northeastern. He has hit in the top 5 in the order every game that he has played since. He's led off once. He's hit second 3 times, hit third once, fourth twice, and fifth once. Most of those with like the A team out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They clearly think he's going to be a key part of this lineup, and it's exciting for me to see that.
It's very exciting. Yeah, he's been really impressive. I love his at bats. Like he is just so disciplined, and he's doing the thing I like the most is that I would say last season there were times where I thought he was overly passive, and he would let hittable pitches go by just because I mean he was ahead in the count. If it's 2-0, 3-0, if you get a pitch to hit and you're Tristan Casas, I want you swinging. Like you don't need to take a strike for the sake of it.
Yep.
And I think the thing that has been most encouraging this spring is that he's been aggressive hunting pitches that he can hit. And even if he's ahead in the count, he's still showing a willingness to swing. And I think the other thing is he is hitting lefties really well this spring.
Yeah, he's got a couple of bombs.
Yeah, he's a couple bombs. I think he has a double also. And that was obviously a question mark. Like coming into the season, he's had his struggles against left-handed hit pitching before. And I think it's something where they talked about that they wanted him to get as much exposure to lefties as possible because they don't want to have to do the thing where they sit him against most lefties. Like I would love for him to turn into someone who can, not only hit against lefties, but also impact the baseball. And I think that's the biggest thing is his slugging percentage dropped off considerably against lefties last season.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's just encouraging to see him driving the ball against them as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And we were talking about the lineup. I mean, who knows where he winds up, man?
Leadoff hitter. Give it to me.
It's
I want it. I think it'd be great. Like the obvious comparison is Kyle Schwarber with the Phillies. Like,
right.
And I'm not sure Kyle Schwarber's going to hit leadoff for the Phillies this year, by the way, because they have Trey Turner now.
They have a guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And without Harper, it probably makes sense to put Schwarber at like third or second or wherever Harper was hitting. I think he was hitting second.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't hate it because like if you assume Devers is going to hit second.
Yep. Start with air. They don't want to lead off Yoshida.
So he's probably going to hit fourth.
So he probably hits fourth to split him and Devers.
Yeah. So Turner's going to be third, I think, obviously.
Turner third.
So it's either Kike Hernandez or who
Casas.
knows, like, or Verdugo maybe. I think it's Verdugo's the other option if you're going to have a lefty.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the idea of Casas. Like, he's going to get some really good pitches to hitting in front of Devers. And I don't know why, but there's something I just like about a guy who will go up and put together like a 7-pitch at bat to start the game. Like, I just feel like the pitcher, it just really gets the pitcher on the ropes if you have a guy who's willing to go up there and work the count to lead off a game. And I just think with the quality of at bats he will put together and with his, like, he's going to walk at a 15+% rate this year. I have a feeling. Like, what was he last year? Like 19% in his small sample. Like, he's going to get on base a ton. And even if he's only hitting like 240, 250, he's going to have a 350, 360, 370, maybe even higher on base. And like, I just think that would be very interesting in front of Devers. Like if you're getting a guy who's getting on base almost 40% of the time ahead of Devers.
Last year he had an on base of 358.
In the majors, so it wasn't like 390 something, or did I make that up?
No, it was 358, but it's because his batting average was like 197.
Oh, but that's with a 197 batting average. It was all
Right.
360. Right.
Right.
So like, let's say
That's what
you
I'm
bump that
saying.
up. Let's say it's 220. Like that's a 380 OBP right there.
Yeah, he walked 19 times in 27 games.
Yeah. Like
Struck out 23 times, but
I just think I think it makes a lot of sense. And obviously it would be weird because he's not fast at all. He's very slow.
it's funny. You have all these new rules to encourage speed, and you're going to lead off Casas.
But they just don't have like another good
No.
option. Like
I think Kike could be.
he
Verdugo
could be, but they
they
been
need to
great this
prove it.
spring. Like Hernandez has not been great this spring at the
Yeah,
plate. And like
he's 1 for 13 entering tonight.
and I think
Before he left for the World Baseball Classic,
Casas has a significantly better approach. Like Casas is going to see more pitches.
Mhm.
He's going to get on base at a higher clip than Hernandez.
Yep.
If your goal is to get runners on base in front of Devers consistently, he's probably your best bet. And I don't know, it'd be weird, but I kind of want to see it now. Like I've really talked myself into it over the last few days,
Particularly in the last 30 minutes.
No, I've had this conversation actually with 2 separate people already this last like week. So I feel like it's something that it might get some more momentum the further we go into camp.
Sure. Yeah, we'll see what happens with it. Another guy who has looked really, really good has been Jarren Duran, who once again, it's the line from The Godfather. Every time I think I'm out, they keep pulling me back in. Duran in where is Duran? Why is Duran not on this page? Is he really that low in at bats? I guess he is.
I think he hasn't had that many because he's walked a decent amount.
Yeah, that's probably it because it's at bats and not plate appearances. Yeah, he's only got 6 at bats and he's walked 4 times. He's only played in 4 games. Interesting. Entering tonight. Is that the case? Oh, you know what? It probably doesn't include. Because then he left for the World Baseball Classic too.
Yeah, he's not there.
Forgot about that. Yeah, he played in 5 games and it doesn't count Northeastern.
He started that game too. Yeah.
Yep. Duran in the 4 games that counted is hitting 500. He's 3 for 6 with with 2 doubles and a home run. So his 3 hits have all been for extra bases, with 4 walks and just 1 strikeout. If he could figure it out, man, especially with the new rules about pickoffs and the larger bases, maybe if they stop being so afraid to stick him in an outfield corner, although I don't know how the fit works now. Maybe in a. Look, he doesn't have an obvious starting role on this team because it's Yoshida, Duvall, and Verdugo. But maybe you send him to AAA and he either plays his way up or someone gets hurt again like last year, or who knows. But he's drawing me back in, Ian. What are you seeing from Duran?
No, I agree. I think his new stance where he's more upright. He's square. He doesn't have that big leg kick anymore. His hands are in a better hitting position. It's working. And like with his speed and his strength, he doesn't need to have that big uppercut swing to drive the ball. Like he can hit the ball extremely hard. And he's going to run into power just by having, just by putting the ball in play. And like, that's always been the issue for him. Can you hit the high fastball? Can you put it in play? Hard, not just on the ground, which is what he did a lot last year. It was a lot of weak contact on the ground or a lot of weak pop-ups. And I think he's done a good job of consistently driving the baseball this year. He's really cut down on the swing and miss so far in camp. He's obviously, you said, who's got 4 walks, 1 strikeout so far. And I just talking to scouts who've seen him, it's the same thing. Like there's still a road to him being an everyday player.
Yeah.
And I do think he's kind of the forgotten man because of the moves they've made in the offseason, obviously the troubles he had last season. But if you had to ask me out of him and Bobby Dahlbeck, who I think has a better chance of becoming a legit asset for the Red Sox, it would be him. And I don't think it's that close anymore. I still think Duran has a chance to be a pretty good ball player, and the changes he's made. And the key is now is we need to see how they translate into regular season game action, because we've seen this before. He's tweaked his swing a lot before, but I just want to see him consistent with these mechanics and just like try to, if he struggles out of the gate, just play through it, like stick with this. Cause what I'm seeing is just someone who looks a lot more comfortable at the plate. The swing is a lot more fluid. It's a lot more direct to the ball, and he just is getting going a lot quicker, which I think is helping him get to that high fastball, which has obviously been his kind of his kryptonite for the last couple of seasons with that power swing.
He's able to get to it. Exactly. Yeah. You mentioned Dahlbeck. I want to get to him in a minute in the context of the other like minor league free agent guys. But one more guy I wanted to talk about who's really been good is Emmanuel Valdez. The average is only 200. He's only 3 for 15, but he's putting good swings on the ball. He's got 6 walks in what looks like 21 plate appearances, 5 Ks. So that's not great, but he's looked pretty good at the plate, and it sounds like people are impressed looking at him. And I guess you could also throw Wilyer Abreu in there as well as another guy who looked good before he got hurt. But Abreu was hitting 333, 429, 750. He had a triple and a home run. So the two guys in the Vasquez trade last year also kind of both are standing out with how they're looking in camp.
Yeah, I know it's, as you said, I was actually surprised when you said he was only hitting 200, but I think that he's just, I like
He
his
being
swing.
Valdez,
Valdez, yeah, he's putting together good at bats. He's walking a ton, as you said. The strikeouts, like, it's kind of a double-edged sword in the sense that he's kind of like Costas in this regard, that if you work really deep counts, you're going to strike out more than guys like Rafael, who just made contact on like the third pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like with him, I'm fine if he's striking out at like a 22% clip or whatever. Like, that's not the end of the world if he's pairing that with like an 18% walk rate or 15% walk rate, whatever it was last season. And so, yeah, I like the way it seems like his swing has really been impressing. Like Alex Cora has spoken very glowingly of him. I think Devers has also talked about him a lot.
He looks hitterish.
Yeah, and if he's it was 16% in Double A with Houston last year. Dropped to it was only 10% with the Red Sox, but
the walk rate for Valdez, you're saying?
Yeah, it was only 10% with Boston, or 9.7, but it was 16.6 in Double A with Houston. And yeah, I've liked what I've seen from him at the plate. He's obviously not ready for the majors, but I'm interested to see kind of if he can keep hitting. It's one of those things that you'll figure out the defense. Like,
yeah, I mean, the defense has looked a little rough, but
yeah, it's not great. But if he hits well enough, he's not a shortstop. I can say that confidently. But if he hits the ball hard enough and consistently and puts together quality at bats, like, you'll figure it out. Like, whether it be DH, left field, maybe try to fake it at first base. Like, you can move him around to find somewhere. But yeah, the bat looks like it could turn into a carrying tool, which is just him alone, like, him for Vasquez is probably a good deal for the Red Sox. The fact that they got a second guy who looks pretty interesting too.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty shrewd piece of business right there.
The other real kind of standout so far, and I think it leads to a group of guys I want to take together, because you actually reported the opt-outs. There are 4 players the Red Sox signed this offseason who have opt-outs. As far as or opt-outs or upward mobility clauses.
Correct.
And to explain what an upward mobility clause is, to remind everyone, or to explain to those it's always someone's first episode. An opt-out is what it sounds like if the player is not added to whatever roster, if it's a 40-man roster opt-out or a 26-man roster opt-out. If that player is not if that player has not been added to that roster yet, the player can exercise his opt-out, which means the team either needs to add him to the roster or he becomes a free agent. An upward mobility clause would mean if the player is not added to whatever roster, if another team in Major League Baseball would add the player to their, say, 26-man roster or 40-man roster, then the Red Sox would either need to do the same or they need to let him go to the other team. So in other words, the Red Sox have a right of first refusal, is the difference between that and an opt-out, in which case with an opt-out, the player just becomes a free agent. In camp, and do you have this up, Ian, or
I can get it. I can get it up in 1 second.
Okay. So in camp, the 4 guys who have opt-outs and or upward mobility clauses in their contracts are Raimel Tapia, Nico Goodrum, Greg Allen, and Jorge Alfaro. Allen's is not until the season starts, so we'll deal with that in May and June. In camp, at the end of camp, Alfaro, I think, is an upward mobility clause. Goodrum is an upward mobility clause. Tapia is an opt-out. I think they're all 40-man, right? The thing is,
just a sec. I'm trying to pull it up.
They're all 40-man. But because Tapia and Alfaro don't have options left, they are effectively 26-man roster
Correct.
clauses because they cannot be optioned. Whereas Goodrum could be added to the 40-man roster and optioned.
Yeah.
That said, let's talk about how they play, because then I think this ties into Bobby Dahlbeck, Dahlbeck has been very good. I mean, he's hitting 353, 421, 706. He's got 6 hits in 7 games, 3 doubles and a bomb. He's also struck out 6 times and has only walked twice. It's been the full Bobby Dahlbeck experience. Tapia has been excellent.
Yeah.
Allen has not been good.
Nope.
Alfaro has hit very well. He's 7 for 10 with 2 doubles.
Though.
The defense has been rough and he hasn't walked yet.
Yeah.
Goodrum looks cooked. He looks like he's toast. Frankly, he's 2 for 13. Great. He's 2 for 13 with nine strikeouts and 13 at bats. Is not a good look.
No.
I mean, granted, and again, the caveat, obviously, these are all spring training stats.
Yes, but that's all we have to go on with these guys.
That's all we have to go on so far. But this is also how they've looked too. We're not just basing this off of a spreadsheet.
No.
Based on the fact that Connor Wong got hurt with a strained hamstring.
Yeah, what's with them and hamstrings? That's the
They've got 4 hamstrings.
No, 3, right?
Abreu, Paxton.
Yeah, Abreu, Paxton, and Wong is 3.
Yeah, and then Turner got hit in the face. Is the 4th injury.
Which is, I mean, that was freaking
terrifying. Yeah, absolutely terrifying.
But nothing like that's not something you could predict. Like,
of course not. Yeah, but 3 hamstrings was kind of crazy. Someone asked on our forum today, like, are they not drinking enough water? But it's like the strain is not a cramp.
No,
the strain is a minor tear. And don't sleep on strains, man. Like, you strain the wrong muscle, you miss half a season. Like,
yeah,
it seems like every year there's some minor league position player who just like disappears for 2 months, and it turns out they had like a strained oblique or a strained hamstring or something, or a neck. Well, yeah, yeah. We'll talk about him in a minute. But yeah, I don't know. So anyway, if Wong's not ready for the season, Alfaro's making the team.
Yeah, I mean, he has to. Like, they literally don't have another option. Like, the
other options.
I was going to say the only other catchers who've played in camp are Caleb Hamilton, Steven Scott, and Eli Marrero, and it's not going to be Marrero or Scott. Oh, Ronaldo Hernandez. Yeah, it's not going to be Marrero or Scott. I would guess
Marrero's already been cut.
It would be Caleb Hamilton. I would guess
it would be probably Caleb Hamilton, and then you just lose him, and it's like whatever.
Yeah, but which is fine. I mean, that's what he is. But
I'd much
rather have him in AAA to start the season as depth than, you know what I mean?
Well, especially if Wong's not going to be long.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
right. His looked the most minor of him and Abreu. Abreu's looked bad. Like,
yeah,
Abreu's looked pretty painful. Wong's, I feel like, didn't look as bad. But
and the thing with catcher too is that I honestly think Alfaro might have had an inside shot, like a pretty good shot at making the team, regardless.
I agree, because you could carry.
Him.
Carry him like with Wong, Chang, Ref Snyder, and Alfaro could be your bench. Like, that makes sense as a bench.
Yeah,
because Alfaro can play first base, catcher, DH, left field,
pinch hit.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think that role works for Alfaro.
Yeah. Especially too, because like you could have him as like a guy who pinch hits for Casas against like a really tough lefty if you really wanted to go that route, or like pinch hits for, I don't know, like Yoshida, Verdugo. Like, there's plenty of guys that, or just starts once a week when they face like the best lefties. Like, that makes sense as a role. But I do think that I prefer one left-handed bat on the bench, which is where I think Tapia comes in. Because
and Tapia has been very good. He's got an opt-out, which seems to be like, if he's playing well, he's making the team.
Yeah, I coming into camp, I was like a little skeptical because, I mean, he's fine. Like, but the way he's playing, like, he's hitting 412, 80-82 slugging. He's got 5 doubles and a home run so far. No walks, which is not surprising. 3 strikeouts. I like his opponent quality, which is a metric Baseball Reference has developed to kind of simulate give you an idea of what they're facing, is 8.1, which is actually among the higher on the team. So he's facing basically like AAA or above arms.
He's starting a lot.
Yeah,
him and
he's
Greg
starting and
Allen
hitting early in the lineup. So he's facing like MLB guys and then AAA
actually
guys.
Tapia has started every game he's played in. Granted, it's actually really funny. His first 4 starts were all in road games. Like, they very clearly had a home lineup and a road lineup the first week of spring training.
Sense. Like, guys like Justin Turner are not going to play on the road. Like,
no. So Allen started like at Atlanta, or sorry, Tapia and Allen, I guess, like it's like Allen, Tapia, and guys like Narciso Crook and guys like that. But it was like started at Atlanta, started at Miami, started at Houston, played at Minnesota, and then finally they had a stretch of like 3 home games, so they had to start playing some of those guys at home. But like,
Yeah,
Tapia has done nothing but start. He has mostly been at the top of the order, although he hasn't necessarily been in the A lineup. The one time he was in the A lineup, he had 8th.
he's mostly playing left field too, right? Or where is he?
He played center field twice, left field twice, and right field twice, and DH'd once.
So I'm sorry, but that's
That
prepping
is-
for a backup role on the major league team.
No question. No question.
And-
like Allen has been mostly left field with a couple of center field starts.
Yeah, I think Greg Allen will start in AAA for them.
Nico Goodrum has not played shortstop. He's only played first, second, and third. He's mostly been first and third. He played second once.
Yeah.
So Goodrum just seems like he's become an afterthought. Hard to believe anyone would want him on that upward mobility clause, to be frank.
I would agree. But I think that the interesting thing with Tapia is, and we kind of talked about earlier, Jarren Duran has also been playing pretty well. And if you're assuming Alfaro is the backup catcher because Wong's not ready, then that basically means Duran and Tapia are playing for one spot. And it's that, 4th, 5th outfielder.
Yep.
And it kind of comes down to me is what couple things you have to weigh. And the first one is 40-man considerations. Because if you're adding Alfaro and Tapia, that's 2 moves you have to make. And there's one pretty clear move for me. I'm not sure what the second one would be, barring like an injury, which we don't know of, obviously.
Sure. And to be clear, let me just, before you get into it, because I know some people are probably thinking it. Well, why don't you put
Abreu,
Wilyer Abreu on the 60-day, given how pessimistic Cora sounded about his hamstring strain?
That happens.
He would start to accrue major league service time on the 60-day IL. It's the same reason why they carried Brian Mata on the 40-man roster and on the minor league injured list
all last year, or not all last year,
2 years ago.
Half a lot. Yeah,
it was 2 years ago that he was on.
Oh, it was all 2 years ago.
It was all 2021 and half of last year, because you don't want him to accrue major league service time. Now, Abreu is not Mata in terms of being a prospect. That said, they like Abreu enough to add him to the 40-man roster this past offseason.
You're not going to start his clock.
You're not going to start his,
not even when he's still in double
service time. Yeah, like he legit might not debut in the majors until the end of next year.
Yeah,
right. Like it might be a lot sooner. It might be this year, frankly. But like, you're not going to start his clock yet, so that's not happening. Now go ahead with the thought you had on.
No, I think that there's a pitcher to DFA. I don't know who it is. I have a preference or who I think it should be based on what I've seen. It's Caleb Ward. He's
struggled.
He's not been great. It's a big arm, but I just don't think that there's enough command and control. And when you combine that with the fact that I think he's almost 32 years old already, like it doesn't really do anything for me. You didn't know that?
He's 32, huh? Jeez.
No, 31 actually. Sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's 31 already. I just don't think there's enough upside. And I think that if you look at kind of what the rotation is looking like, assuming Whitlock, Paxton, who we'll discuss a little bit in a second, and
we'll talk about the injuries,
are all going to start on the IL, which seems likely at this point. Maybe not Whitlock, maybe I don't know, but probably. Then one of Kelly or is going to make the team out of camp. Or maybe Winkowski, I guess. One of those 3 is going to make the team.
I think they're going to keep Winkowski stretched.
I would agree, but I'm going to throw him in there for now just in case. Because the one thing I will say is looking at the bullpen we currently have projected, if Crawford and Houck are in the rotation, they don't have any length there. So
that's true. I mean, let's say what the projection we have right now is. So, and we're, kind of getting away from the hitter piece of this. Right now, it looks like Garrett Whitlock, Brian Bayo, and James Paxton are not going to be ready to start.
Paxton definitely isn't. They've said, okay, because Paxton strained his hamstring in his last start. I can't see any way Bayo's ready, considering he still is throwing like 80% bullpens right now.
Yeah. So and Bayo was just they're bringing him along slowly after the forearm issue.
Was it an elbow? I thought it was elbow.
I thought it was forearm.
I don't know. It was tenderness.
Forearm tenderness or something.
Tightness.
Whitlock, they're still bringing along slowly. He's been pitching bullpens, but like just took his first PFPs.
Yeah, Whitlock's just seems like they're just being cautious.
They're just bringing him along slowly after his offseason surgery.
Yeah, I don't think it's weird. I just think hips are. I mean, knowing someone who's had hip surgery, it doesn't sound fun, and it seems like
No.
it's kind of like a tough rehab. So I think they're just, especially with someone who his whole like thing is getting that hip rotation. I kind of get it that they're bringing it along slowly.
Yeah, so we project the starting rotation to be Sale, Kluber, Pivetta, Hauk, and Crawford. I think Crawford you could probably interchange with Winkowski.
Yeah, Crawford's looked great though, I would say, during camp so far.
Yeah, both him and Winkowski have looked really good.
Yeah, Hauk has been Hauk, a couple good innings, and you have he walks a guy, gives up a home run, and then he's fine again. But
6 Ks and 6 walks. I mean, it's the Tanner Hauk experience, right? Yeah.
Where I think, would you have Crawford stats up?
I hope. Yeah.
I feel like
Crawford in 5 innings has 5 Ks, no walks, 2 hits, no runs. I mean,
that's the thing that I've been most impressed with him is he's getting the ball, he's throwing it, and he's just weak contact, and he's missing bats on occasion. Like that's his recipe.
Winkowski 5 innings, 7 Ks, 3 walks, 3 hits.
Yeah,
no runs.
So I just think I don't think Ort personally of that group fits that of him, Zach Kelly, like Wyatt Mills kind of grouping, because Mills has been lights out. He had 3 more Ks tonight. He's pitched really well.
Mills has arguably been the best pitcher.
I love his arm slot for what it brings. It's just a completely different look. He's like almost lower than Schreiber. Like it's really funky. Yeah, it's really funky. Like I like his fit in the bullpen, and I like Zach Kelly a lot. So obviously that by process of elimination, you're kind of stuck with Caleb Ward is like the only one I think it makes sense. Yeah. That second move is just, I don't know who you do. Like
I think it's got to be a trade. And one that came to me,
you might even be able to trade Caleb Ward. Frankly, I could see another team that likes his fastball shape and things like that could be interested. But I think we're going to see a trade or two, because I think they're most likely going to have to get Alfaro on the roster. And with the way Tapia is playing, and I personally, and this is the other part of what I was going all the way back to the discussion of Tapia versus Duran. It comes down to, I think with Duran for me, is what is more beneficial for him as a player? Is it long-term
for Duran?
For Duran, is it to be the bench outfielder on the Red Sox getting, playing once a week, maybe getting like 6-7 at bats a week, or to be playing every day in AAA? And given he's completely changed his swing and he's still working on the defensive side of things, I think playing every day in AAA would be significantly more valuable for both the Red Sox in the short term and the long term with him. Mm-hmm. And I think that like getting him consistent every day at bats is enough for me to be willing to make a 40-man move to get Tapia on. Because I think if you can turn Duran and getting consistent at bats and he ends up turning into, even like a platoon everyday player, that's a better outcome than the guy you're going to be DFAing. So I'm fine, like creating a spot to get Tapia on for however long you need him on the roster for.
Crazy idea. What about trading Ref Snyder?
I thought about that. It was, but then the issue for me is you don't have a backup right-handed hitting outfielder, which you're going to need.
I guess that's true.
You need someone who can like spell Verdugo or Yoshida against tough lefties. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
What would be ideal if you could loan Jarren Duran to another team? I would love to see loans in MLB.
Ian, the soccer fan, rearing his
it'd be so cool. Imagine how cool it would be. Like, I would like to loan Jarren Duran
to the Royals,
to
the Athletics. Yeah,
I muted. I just realized. Like, it would be so cool to have a loan system where you could like send guys to other teams to get at bats who maybe are not good or not. They might not be ready to play for your team, but they could play another team. I don't know. I just thought of that.
He's a Cali boy. He would love to go back to Oakland for a loaner.
Yeah. But anyway, so I just think that is going to be, those are probably the position, like I would say of this far in camp, a lot of it is, I feel like set. Like,
I think the bullpen, if
there's one spot in the bullpen up for grabs, I think.
So yeah, Jansen, Martin, Schreiber, Joely Rodriguez, Brazier, frankly.
Brazier's making the team. We just,
Mills,
there was, by the way, good article by Chad Jennings on The Athletic breaking down Brazier and why he's still around. And it's a lot of what we kind of talked about on other episodes, but he was really good in September. Like, and as I think it was someone in the Red Sox said to Jennings, like if he was on another team, he was the type of player we would take a shot at as a free agent. And I get that based on what he showed in September.
And you already have him.
Exactly. So he's making the team. Richard Blyer's making the team.
Yep.
So then
it's like, got one spot that we project Kelly for that I think that's the move. It's Kelly versus Ort versus whoever out of Winkowski and Crawford is not starting in the major league rotation.
And this is assuming Houck and Crawford are in the rotation. Because I think things were more interesting, though, if like you're assuming Whitlock, Paxton, and Bayo are healthy for the rotation. Because then it's like,
oh God,
one of them is in the bullpen, and then
it looked like it was going to be Pivetta moving to the bullpen.
Yeah, which would have been, I don't know how he would have taken that, but probably not well. But
I'm sure he wouldn't have, but they don't have to deal with it yet.
Yeah, but anyway, so I mean, it's the bullpen is kind of like sorted itself out, and this is kind of what we say about pitching, though. Like it usually works itself out. Like, and thankfully this season they have a lot more depth than past seasons, where like the options, if they had 3 potential starters injured, you'd be looking at like the Ryan Weber types, and this instead you're getting like Houck and Crawford, who both have who both have like pretty long runs starting in the majors, and then you have Winkowski in AAA, who also has started in the majors before. Like they're in a pretty good spot to withstand a few injuries. Obviously, if it gets more than this, then it gets problematic. But for what it is right now, they're in pretty good shape still.
And the thing is, we haven't even talked about Brian Mata, Brandon Walter, and Chris Murphy, who have all, to different degrees, probably looked really good. I mean, Walter has probably been the minor leaguer who's turned the most heads. I feel like he's the guy that a lot of people are really starting to pay attention to now.
Well, I think he's healthy. That's the biggest thing.
He's a big lefty with that sail arm slot that doesn't walk anybody. He's in 3 innings, he struck out 5, 1 walk. One hit, no walks.
You say that he walked 3 today, actually.
Did he walk? Well, so that's the thing. And this is why, like, the way you put it, before we started the show, which I loved, was he looked like a major league pitcher for 2 innings, and then in the third,
Yeah, well, and this is the thing. So we'll talk about it. So he faced Brandon Walter, started against Team Puerto Rico. We're recording this Wednesday night. And his first 2 innings were 6 up, 6 down, 4 ground balls to second base, and 2 strikeouts. He struck out Francisco Lindor and
Baez.
No, it wasn't Baez. It was it wasn't Melendez. Maybe Eddie Rosario. I don't remember. No, it's Christian Vasquez. He struck out Christian Vasquez and Francisco Lindor and was cruising through the first 2 innings. Got an out in his 3rd inning, and then it was walk. He was ahead 0-2, walk Nelson Velasquez. Bad fastball, probably his worst located pitch of the night. Double off the top of the wall by Maldonado. Got ahead against Lindor, ended up walking him. Got ahead against Hernandez, ended up walking him, and then I think he got taken out of the game.
Yeah, and Brian Kwiatkowski to finish the inning.
Yeah, and it was like watching those at bats. I was
going to say Kwiatkowski got Eddie Rosario to ground into a double play to get out of the inning.
Yeah, well, it was watching those at bats, as I think what illustrated to me, and something Walter's going to have to learn, is like, he can throw waste pitches, but not waste pitches, but like the pitches that he can get minor league hitters out. Some of those aren't going to work against major league quality hitters.
They're going to be non-competitive in the major leagues.
Exactly. And even in ones that are closer to being competitive, they'll still spit on it. Like, I think it was Lindor. It was either Lindor or Hernandez. He threw a really good changeup just off the plate, like knee high, and they just spit on it. And like, that's a pitch that 90% of minor league hitters are swinging
through. Yeah.
Yeah. But against a major league player, like, that's the pitch that they get paid, tens of millions of dollars to take.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a good experience for him to see that and to learn, like, yes, these pitches are very successful for me in the minors, but against major league hitters, I'm going to have to get even better. And I think we saw in the first 2 innings, though, he showed what he can do. Like, it's 3 pitches, velocity. It's not going to be great ever. It's low 90s, but if you have a plus slider and a plus changeup with that, and you can command all 3 pitches, you can be a solid major league starter. And I think that's kind of what he's shown so far, is that assuming he's healthy, he looks like someone who you could project at some point to take over in the starting rotation for the Red Sox, which is pretty exciting development.
Meanwhile, Brian Mata looks to me like a guy that throws at least semi-important relief innings in Boston this year. If not getting spot starts, I mean, he could also get spot starts. It's not like they're moving into the bullpen tomorrow, but like, it's not hard to squint and see him pitching at Fenway in a later inning in September.
No, his stuff is nasty in the bullpen. He's 4 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. And I think it's interesting that he's being brought along a little slower than some of the other guys we have projected for the AAA rotation. Like, his outings have been 1 inning, 2 inning, 1 inning, 2 innings so far.
Yeah,
whereas
as opposed to
other guys
as opposed to Walter, who went 1, 2, 3. Chris Murphy
3
went
with
1,
an asterisk.
Well, or sorry, 1, 2, 2 and a third,
but it was 3 innings worth of pitches.
It was 3 innings worth of pitches.
It was like 50 pitches or whatever.
Yeah, Winkowski went 2 innings in his first start, 3 in his second appearance. Crawford 2 and 3. So although Winkowski and Crawford, they probably started a little sooner because they were maybe seen as potentially being up in the majors, whereas Mata and Walter weren't going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But his stuff looks really good. I mean, it's short stints, and I think that these are some of the questions still is like, can he hold his mechanics for 6 innings, 100 pitches? Can he hold his stuff for that long? And those are things we're not going to have answered until the regular season.
Mhm.
But it's why we kind of have talked, and why I think we talked about why he stayed so high, even with his injury stuff and the reliever questions. Is if he's a reliever, it could be a really, really good reliever.
Yeah.
And that's what separates him from me from like the guys like Chris Murphy or like further down, like the true relievers, is like he's got a chance to start. And if he's a bullpen, he's a leverage guy.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
guys like
He's
Murphy,
pitching
I'm
the
not
eighth
sure
or the
he's a
ninth.
leverage guy. And that's why at the worst case, though, it looks like Mata could be someone who could definitely help them in the second half of this season if they want to go that route.
Or sooner, honestly.
Or sooner. Yeah. I mean, his stuff is very good.
If you have a rash of injuries in the bullpen, screw it. Come up and throw 98.
Because the thing is, and the biggest issue for him is command. And it's like, if he's throwing 1 inning, you can fake it. Like, it's fine. Like, if you're overpowering hitters, you can get away with a mislocation throwing 98. It's a lot easier to
hitters
do
who've never seen you before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially, too, if you're throwing like the cutter, slider, whatever it is, curveball, and changeup, too. Like, yeah, there's a lot to like there.
Yep. All right. I think, let's see, anything else out of camp? Matthew Lugo looked good.
Yeah, Lugo got a decent amount of playing time. Not great at shortstop. I was a little surprised actually to see him back there, but I guess with Christian Koss gone, they didn't really have another person to play there, I guess.
Well, yeah, so I've been tracking usage and guys who have been getting the shortstop innings. Christian Koss missed 8 days for the birth of his child, which lucky for him, that happened during spring training, honestly. Kike Hernandez started at short every game he played. Edwin Diaz came up as a minor leaguer to play short a fair amount. Lugo played short in 3 of his 7 games. Nick Sogard got 1 game at short. Koss, since returning, has played short since he came back. But otherwise, like David Hamilton has been playing shortstop. Christian Arroyo got 1 game at short. But, Fitzgerald has not seen any time at short. As you mentioned, Emmanuel Valdez has not that we expected him to because we pay attention. Yeah, there weren't a ton of guys who could play short. And I'm very curious when we're down there in minor league camp to see if Lugo is playing any short then. Because we project him to be on a AA roster that also is going to include Edwin Diaz, who for now is going to be gone with Team Puerto Rico. I guess Nick York is second base only, but Max Ferguson and Tyler McDonough both are utility guys who play short as well and played short on the Greenville roster last August and September, where Lugo was not getting any time at short. So I don't know. Does it wind up being something where, okay, yeah, we didn't have him playing short last year because we wanted him to get used to second and third? Or is it something where, yeah, that ship has sailed and we just needed him to play some short in camp? I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting too, because if you look at the Portland roster, like there is an opening for him to start at shortstop.
Sure. You would absolutely play him over Diaz if you think there's a chance he can stick it short.
So, and then that
or fake it at short.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. I at the plate, I thought he held his own, which was just kind of encouraging to see. Some of his hits,
he didn't look overmatched.
No, they're kind of fluky, I will say.
Sure.
Like he had like a double that was like a bloop, and his triple was pretty wind dated. But I think just for one of I think he's the only hitter who didn't have significant AA time to be up, right? Did I make that up?
Yeah, no, because Wilyer Abreu played a good amount of AA.
He played all last year in AA, right?
Yep. Eli Marrero was in AA all of last year, and he was only really up to be Marrero and Scott both got a lot of time in AA last year too, and those are the only guys who hadn't. Those 4 were the guys who hadn't played in AAA yet. Yeah, I think.
And so for Lugo to go 4 for 10. With
Adonier Mosqueda had only played in AA, but
yeah,
whatever. So he was there all year.
Lugo went his 4 for 10 with 2 doubles, the triple, and 5 RBIs, and then 4 strikeouts. And that's kind of what I expect. Like he's definitely going to be overmatched at times by some of the secondary pitches, especially against the better arms. But the fact that he's able to get a couple extra base hits on the board, I think is pretty encouraging. And I'm excited to see what he can do in the high minors. I think it's going to be a really good test for a hitter like him.
Yep, agreed.
And should we end on Rafaela? Because I feel like we have to talk about him.
We do. So Rafaela,
he's playing a ton.
Well, it's funny. Yeah. So as far as playing a ton, entering tonight, Ryan Fitzgerald had played every single game. Rafaela had played all but 1. Although it was funny, yesterday against the Braves was the first game he'd started, which I thought was a little weird.
Oh, really?
But I guess it's in part because they wanted to get Duvall reps in center.
Yeah.
Let me see who else. Oh, Tapia had started in center twice on the road, so I get putting the former major league guy in the starting lineup because you're evaluating him for whether you want to keep him or not. Duran played center twice. And again, you're going to start Duran over Rafaela. So I think it's just that it's the opposite problem of what they had with Lugo, where they had a bunch of guys who could play center and they didn't have a bunch of guys who could play short. So I think with the World Baseball Class, with the WBC guys gone, he's going to play a lot more center, particularly Duran. But
Yeah, I mean, I assume he's going to play pretty much every day.
Sure. I mean, he already basically is. Valdez had played almost every day.
Oh, no,
Valdez
sorry.
is playing almost every day.
I mean, like start though.
Oh,
Rafaela's going to start.
No, Duvall's still there. I mean, Duvall's going to start.
I guess, yeah.
In center. Yeah, Duvall's going to get the most of the starting center field reps.
I feel like, okay, so Rafaela's going to start on the road is what I should have said.
Yeah. Like I guarantee you tomorrow in Tampa, Rafaela is starting at center.
Yeah.
Unless it's like Tapia or
100%, because Duvall played a night game tonight. There's zero chance he's starting tomorrow in Tampa.
Yeah.
Which he shouldn't be. I mean, that's what you do with.
No.
But yeah. No, I think Rafaela is like, he's looking like kind of what I expected, honestly.
Yep.
He's 4 for 18. 4 for 18, a walk, 3 strikeouts, 2 caught stealings. He's playing really good defense, obviously. Like he's made some really nice plays. He made this one catch in center field that looks so much like Jackie Bradley, where it was like a deep fly ball that should have been a tough play, but he was there well in plenty of time and just like caught it nonchalantly off to his side. And I was like, yeah, that's a very hard play that he just made look like a can of corn. And but at the plate, like it's tough. He looks like he's working. He's definitely taking more pitches, but and this is something it's hard to judge on TV, and it's a lot easier to see when you're in person. Is like, is it a meaningful take, or are you taking for the sake of it? And that's still what I'm trying to figure out with him. Is like,
are you taking to practice taking pitches?
Exactly. Are you taking it because they told you to, or are you taking it because you've identified the pitch and you don't think it's a strike? And it's a small distinction, but it's a distinction. And one of the things I've noticed is he's not really tracking the ball into the glove. And that's one thing that if you see a lot of the top hitters who, when they take, they're tracking it all the way. And like, that's something he doesn't really do. And yeah, I'm still, the approach is still a major work in progress. And I think we're seeing it, he's going to get his hits. He's hit the ball hard when it's a good pitch to hit, but too often, like he's just getting out, rolling over on a weak contact or a pitch that he's expanding the zone on. And that stuff he's just going to have to work on. And I think he knows it. I think the Red Sox know it. And that's just kind of the biggest flaw in his game right now. But I think this is really good experience regardless. I mean, at the end of the day, we need to remember this is a kid with, half a season in Double-A facing pitching better than that. So yeah, it's good experience for him, and he's kind of doing what I expect so far, I think.
It's interesting that he has not played any shortstop yet. And it kind of makes me wonder whether they're just like, you know what? It's potential Gold Glove center field defense. Let's not mess around. Just leave him out in center.
Yeah, and I think though that also when you look at the organization, they have a ton of shortstops. Like,
well, no, we just got done saying they don't though.
No. I'm saying like coming up behind him, like.
Behind him. Sure. I get that, but it's like last year he started at short once a week, like literally once a week.
I think during the regular season that will happen again too, by the way.
Oh, sure. I do as well, especially, I mean that, look, we have a projected lineup, quote unquote, for the Worcester Red Sox. Like that's going to look different every single day. Koss is going to be moving around. Fitzgerald's going to be moving around. Sogard's going to be moving around. Goodwin's going to be moving around. Hamilton will move around. Rafaela will move around. They have a bunch of guys that I do not envy whoever's going to have to make that lineup on a given night.
No, but I think also though, if you look at what they have in camp, like for outfield, they just don't have that many center fielders. Like if you're looking at it, so they've played Tapia in center field. Has Greg Allen hasn't played any center field yet?
He has. He played a couple.
Yes. So Allen has played center also. Narciso Cook, I think, is a corner only.
Cook has only played mostly left with like a few games in right.
Fitzgerald is corner only for outfield.
Yep. Fitzgerald has played left field twice and right field once.
So they really only have like 3 guys who can play center field or who they're. I mean, I think Tyler McDonough's also played out there one game, but of the NRIs, they only really have 3 guys. So with 2 of your outfielders gone and those guys having to play the corners too, I think it kind of makes sense that he hasn't got any time in the infield. Whereas at shortstop, they have Christian Koss, who got an NRI. They have David Hamilton, who they want to play a lot there. So that's 2 guys already. Like, I guess it makes sense to me that Rafael hasn't played there.
Yeah. One thing I want to see is if they play Hamilton or Koss in the outfield, because Koss, especially in Puerto Rico in the winter, played a bunch of outfield. So we'll see what they do. Anyway, yeah, moving on. I guess we mentioned the injuries, Paxton Turner, Wong Abreu. We talked about the opt-outs. I guess the one signing was Daniel Palka. Since the last episode, they signed him to be the AAA first baseman. They didn't have a first baseman. Now they do.
Yeah,
That's not on a 40, like a Dahlbeck type. Like he's just he'll DH and play first. And I would say maybe play some left field or something. But like I think that ship is probably sailed. And they've got other guys that are probably going to want to play out there.
Dahlbeck will probably play some third too.
Allen and Crook. Yeah, apparently Dahlbeck has been playing a lot more third base in camp. Yeah. He's been playing it actually more. Well, he started at first twice, and he started at third base 5 times.
Makes sense though. With Devers gone, he's going to have to play there a decent amount. So,
yep. So might as well get him the reps.
But I think Palka is like
your
typical, or he's like Christian Stewart from last year. He's going to hit a ton of home runs. He's going to strike out a bunch. He's going to hit like 230, and yeah,
he's going to have a month where he goes off, and people are going to ask if he's going to get called up if it continues, and we're going to remind them that Tristan Casas is in Boston. So, again, that's a prediction for me. Write it down. That happened. Other transactions, Cole Cottom, not Christian Cottom. Cole Cottom was released, catcher taken out of the University of Kentucky in 2018. 4th round pick, got up to AAA, didn't really hit last year. Apparently, our Ed Hand reported that Cottom asked for his release. Kind of made sense, honestly, given that he was the only one released. Usually the releases come in waves. They'll release like 5 to 10 guys at once. This one was by itself. So makes sense to probably just to give him an opportunity to go get looks with other teams. So happy trails to Cole Cottom. And the first round of camp cuts, the Red Sox sent down Eli Marrero, Matthew Lugo, Victor Santos, and Dan Altavilla. Interestingly, Altavilla and Santos had not pitched at all in camp. Altavilla is recovering from an injury that cost him all of last year. Santos, not clear why he didn't pitch at all. So we're looking into that. Might be an injury type situation with him too. So, yeah, all those guys cut from camp. I think that's about it. Moving to something completely different. I guess to close things out before we get to your emails, Baseball America released its organization rankings, Ian. And they ranked the Red Sox 10th, which is the highest out of any of the rankings we've seen so far, well ahead of where Keith Law had them at 23rd and ahead of where was it? Kylie had them, I think, at 14.
Yeah.
14th. If it seems high, to me, the clear thing you have to remember is that Masataka Yoshida counts in Baseball America's prospect rankings.
That's a pretty big deal.
That's huge. I mean, that like Yoshida alone will bump you up a few spots. So if it seems high, that's why. That's a guy who is going to start in the major leagues on opening day. So that has value. Mm-hmm. Top 100 prospect on their list. But otherwise, like depending on how much you assume that gooses them up, still seems a shade high, Ian.
I think I would have them like in the 13-ish range, probably. I think that is about where I'd be comfortable with them.
I'd say 15 to 13.
Yeah, 13 to 15-ish. But I mean, it's fine. Like with Yoshida, factoring in Yoshida, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. It's fine. It's not 23rd. I think it's a little more consistent with, who we saw in their top 100 lists, who's in their organization. I think it's fine. It's right about what we would have expected. Like I said, I expected them to be kind of middle of the pack-ish, that 13 to 16 range. And if you're counting Yoshida, then it makes sense they're 10th. So what I really want is for one of these outlets to do an organizational, either like a young players ranking, because it's like, this doesn't count Brian Bayo. And granted, I'm not saying like, the Red Sox should be higher. Like players like Brian Bayo should count, in my opinion. Yeah,
Durant's not in there. Do you know who else isn't in there? Do you know who's pitching for Team Australia right now? Can you guess? It's an ex-Red Sox prospect.
Daniel McGrath?
Yep.
Of course.
I didn't realize he was still pitching.
Yeah, no, he pitches in Australia over the winter. I don't think he's with an affiliate.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, but it was funny. They just saw him come out.
The World Baseball Classic rosters, I had that whole long thread about it. It's a whole lot of, hey, remember this, guys.
Yeah. And also Ryan Roland Smith is announcing it, ex-Red Sox legend for about, a month.
Was he in Pawtucket?
He was in Pawtucket for a month. Yeah.
Oh man, I forgot about that.
Because the reason I know that is because he was talking about playing with Bogarts yesterday when Panama was
that's funny.
the Netherlands was playing Panama.
Yeah.
Or no, the Netherlands was playing Cuba.
He was
talking. Right. Roland Smith was talking about how Bogarts came up to him and they chatted for a little bit, and he remembered him from his days with the Red Sox. I thought that was pretty funny.
That is funny.
Yeah, the WBC.
Yeah.
Get the pitch clock going, but it's fun to watch.
Yeah, gosh, it makes it so much harder to watch. I get why they didn't do it, but dang.
Yeah, you don't really notice.
That's open and close on the same thing.
Yeah, but it's it makes such a difference now that you know what life is like with the pitch clock.
Yeah.
Should we get to emails?
We should get to emails. Again, if you want to hit us up, it's podcast@soxprospects.com. Good crop of emails this weekend. Let's get to the first one. This is from Christian, who says, hey guys, there's been a lot of talk about adding speed at the big league level with rule changes and bigger bases, but it also appears that there's been somewhat of a broader emphasis on athleticism for the Red Sox in 2023. Do you see a trend of more well-rounded athleticism throughout the system beyond just responding to rule changes? This has been on my mind a lot recently with baseball in general. Interested to hear your thoughts. Thanks. I'm interested to hear what you think, Ian. I don't think I'm seeing it. I think there's always, look, you bet on athleticism, right? As opposed to just base clogger sex. I mean, you could also say like last year's minor league hitter of the year was Nico Cavadas.
I think that though what it is that with the shift changes, I think athleticism matters more at second base than it used to. I feel like you used to be able to hide people at second base on defense, and we'd frankly talk about it. We'd be like, hey, you can kind of stick them at second base and you can fake it there. And with the shift rules now, second base is arguably just as important as shortstop now, and for a defensive profile. So I think that that's why what we're going to see is that maybe not this year, but I think going forward, you're going to be looking at teams are going to be looking for those more defensive types at second base, or guys who are two-way threats who are also good defenders at second base, whereas being like, if he hits enough, we can put up with average defense there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Fair. I mean, I just don't see like the type of players that they're drafting and signing in the minors. Like, I don't see a difference. Like, no, Mikey Romero is not a guy who oozes athleticism, right? Like Miguel Blaze is there, but we
also haven't seen a draft since this stuff went in. And frankly, unlike the NFL draft, like I don't think you're going to draft based on the current rules at MLB. Because by the time these guys get to the majors, like who knows what the rules are going to be.
Exactly. Well, I think it's just, look, like you draft athletes because like athletes are good to have, because sometimes you get Miguel Blaze out of it. Who knows what the Acuna kit is there, right? Like who knows what he turns into. Interesting. Our next question is kind of a related question. You don't like the Acuna comp?
No, Daniel McGrath just hung a slider. And
okay.
This Korean dude just hit a nuke off him.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's not good.
Now Korea's winning 3-2. It was 2-0, and he came in with 2 outs, 2 on, and just hung a breaking ball. Yeah.
All right. Our next email is from Patrick. It says, hey guys, over the years, you have several times mentioned a prospect, quote, losing athleticism, end quote. Frequently, the player in question hasn't suffered an injury, is still young, and hasn't grown an inch. Is that expression a polite way of saying there's an underlying issue with lack of effort and focus? I'm not looking to name names or embarrass anyone. No, and I'll throw this one to you, Ian, as the director of scouting and someone who uses the phrase on occasion. But there are certainly guys we have used that with, and if you can maybe explain a little bit what you mean by that.
Yeah, it just means like as you get older, you physically mature in different ways. Your body goes differently. Like,
and vouch.
Yeah, I mean, same. And there are just certain guys who like you're quick and twitchy and kind of a skinny guy when you're younger. And then as you put on more muscle, your body physically matures. You know, if you had 20, 30 pounds of muscle, you're going to become inherently less twitchy. You're going to become less athletic. And I think that's kind of what we've seen with a few guys. I'm guessing the person they were referring to was Gilberto Jimenez is the best example, I think, of that. But yeah, it kind of happens. Like that's just, you never know what's going to happen. Even as much as these guys are on, diet and workout plans and everything, you never know physically what's going to happen. Guys can grow a couple inches. Guys are going to just get stronger naturally. Like it just happens.
One guy that comes to mind for me for that was Dahlbeck, who at one
another
point,
good example. He was
the defense was what really took a big hit at third base. He went from being one of the best defenders in the system to being like meh at third.
Yeah, it was ranged, backed up on him, got a little like he wasn't as comfortable charging. Yeah, it's a good point too. And that's the thing is it's not necessarily just fast people. It can be people who are
And it's not a work ethic thing. It's not saying he didn't
it's
put the
nothing to
work.
do
I mean,
with
who
that.
knows? Maybe it is, but like that's not what we're
No,
trying to
we're
imply
not inferring that or anything.
at all.
It's and like with Jimenez, I mean, he just came back one year looking like a running back because he put on a
Mhm.
ton of muscle. So it happens.
Yep. Our next question is from Philip, who says, I have a question about war, as in wins above replacement, not nations fighting. I know it's an individual stat, but how does it translate to a team? If you add up a team's war to 0, do you get a 500 team? What level of war would you need to make the playoffs? Thanks again for your podcast. It makes it possible to follow the sport, even from Norway. All right. So there's definitely a formula for this. Looking really quickly, Fangraphs in their kind of What is War Explained article, probably the closest answer to this is there are currently 1,000 wins above replacement per season based on a replacement level of a 294 winning percentage. So, and of those 1,000, they allocate 570 to position players and 430 to pitchers. Basically, the wins above replacement, it's if you had a team of replacement level players, they would play 294 baseball, is what they're saying. And so when adding wins above replacement, you climb from that. So 294 winning percentage would be 0.294 times 162 equals 47 or 48 wins. So obviously that's not good, but as you add wins, it goes up. So like a 80 win season minus 47, you have to have 33 wins above replacement on your team somewhere. So that's roughly how you calculate it. So good question. Thank you for sending it in, Philip. Our next question, Ian, comes from Will, and he says, hey guys, I'm just curious to get your take on where the Red Sox organization falls short in developing some of these top tier pitchers like the Rays, Guardians, Astros, Braves, etc. seem to always bring up. Is there something lacking with the actual development of the pitchers, or does it really just come down to scouting/drafting guys who don't pan out in the long run? Obviously, Brian Bale looks like he could be the real deal, but the last few years have obviously been lacking many homegrown players as a focal point of the rotation. I mean, you could say that for well over a decade or two now.
I also think though that some of those teams that you cited haven't exactly yes, they've developed homegrown pitchers, but they not necessarily been good. Like Tyler Glasnow has been disappointing because of injuries. Like
and they traded for him, by the way.
The Astros, when you look at their rotation, the guys who developed into the studs were not who was expected to. Like Forrest Whitley's done nothing. He was supposed to be their big pitching prospect. The guys who have are like Framber Valdez and Luis Garcia, who were not highly regarded. And I think that just illustrates the inherent issues with pitching development.
Sure.
Like anyone can pop realistically at any time as long as they have certain characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's just so hard to nail down is you look at the Astros, Forrest Whitley got a bunch of money and the two guys who end up being good are the ones who got nothing. You look at what the Phillies are doing right now. They have Andrew Painter, who looked like the best pitching prospect in baseball, injured. You look at
did
the
Painter
Rays.
get hurt now?
Yeah.
Or are you thinking about Espino?
No, Painter's hurt.
Painter's hurt now too?
Yeah.
Jeez.
But you look at the Rays, Glasnow, Brett Honeywell. There's a long litany of pitching prospects with them who look
the
like
other
top
guy
guys.
Who was up.
Luis Patino. Granted, all these guys were acquired in trades technically, but
Shane Baz
and Tommy John. All these guys are getting hurt. The guys who've turned out were Jeffrey Springs, who was a cast off from the Red Sox in a small trade.
Who was a cast off from the Tigers.
Drew Rasmussen, who they acquired in a trade for a reliever when he was a reliever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's just, I think that developing pitching prospects, there's no science. I don't think there's an exact science for it. It's
I think it's this. There's something of a chicken egg problem and this is player development generally, is there's the scouting component and there's the development component. And then there are components that are entirely outside of your own control, such as injuries, dumb luck, any number of things that could contribute.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, you're never going to be we will never be able to pinpoint with an answer of the Red Sox have not developed the top flight starting pitching prospect because blank.
Yeah. Because I think the Cleveland is the best example of this. I'm just looking at their team right now. Their rotation is 4 guys who they drafted and then Cal Quantrill, who they acquired when he was a prospect.
Mm-hmm. But he had come up with the A's, hadn't he?
No,
Or am I
Padres.
thinking? I'm thinking of Capralian. Never mind.
Yeah, no, he was with the Padres. But then
Yep.
you look at, like, as you mentioned, Espino. Espino was their top pitching prospect. He's now shoulder injury, not good. Like,
He went from being like a top 30 prospect to like coming off of
I think
lists.
Fangraphs has him in like 100 or like near the end
Yeah.
of the list because of
Yep.
they're taking into the risk into fact.
Well, I
But
think it's also when the list got released because I don't think he was like hurt
yes,
again.
it was after.
He wasn't
Right.
hurt again yet when like the BA list came out.
Correct. But like with them though, when you look at what they've done, and I do think the Cleveland pitching development is remarkable. Like the stuff
Sure.
they've done with like Tanner Bibby, and guys like that who just have gained like a ton of velocity with them. They draft volume. Like they just take a ton of. They had what was it? An entire pitcher draft or 19 of their 20 picks were pitchers.
They were close. It was the Angels were the team that went all pitchers.
Yeah, I knew,
but
one
it was
of them
like
did.
Cleveland, the
And the
Dodgers, and I think there was one more team that went like all but one or two picks were pitchers.
Yeah, and like that's a big way to do it. Is like
Get them, put them in the system.
You draft a ton, and like you look at their system. Yeah, it's like second round, fifth round, first round, fourth round, second round, fifth round, sixth round, eighth round, first round, seventh round, first round. Like I'm just going down the system, looking at fourth round, first round, second round. Like, do you know how many high picks they've taken on pitchers?
Yeah.
That's how you get, like, it's a volume play.
Well,
and I think that's
and that's the question
thing the Red Sox haven't done is like they are not there. And I can't necessarily just disagree with them seeing the like pitchers are getting hurt because it just seems like there's no way to predict who's going to get hurt with pitchers. And what the Red Sox seem to have done is they're going to, with their, their valuable resources, their highest bonus pool, like draft picks and their high slot for international, they're going to go hitters because hitters, there's a lot better chance of them turning out than pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't argue with that, seeing
what
we're seeing around baseball. Yeah.
It's a better investment.
Because like, and speaking of Tampa, like look at their pitching staff right now. Shane McClanahan, who they drafted in the first round.
Yep.
Drew Rasmussen, Milwaukee. Zach Eflin, who the Red Sox obviously were interested to. Then Jeffrey Springs, who we mentioned was on the Rangers, the Tigers, like everyone. And then Yanni Chirinos, who was a free agent who got nothing back in 2012. And like, yeah, that's like, they do a good job of getting guys in and maximizing them, but that's like, that to me is like a little different than development because a lot of these guys they're getting are major leaguers who they maximize.
Or they get them when they're in like double A or triple A.
Like Jalen Beeks. They got, what was he in triple A when they got him from the Red Sox?
He had debuted.
Had he debuted? Because he's projected to be their setup guy this year. Like,
yeah, Beeks had debuted.
Yeah. So like that's what I think what they're really good at is they're using their, whatever their pitching development is very good at like maximizing pitch efficiency and identifying like shape and other things that you can kind of tweak, release point, like delivery in order to maximize, like making you the best pitcher, best version of yourself basically, or tweaking your pitch mix in order to. And I think that's things the Red Sox are trying to, like they've done it with pitchers. They've have guys adding pitchers, like subtracting, tweaking like deliveries, arm slots. Like the Red Sox are trying to do that too. It's just pitching is hard. Developing pitchers is hard. And I just don't think there's any way you can say like, there's no textbook, like this is the right way to do it. It's like very case specific for each pitcher in each organization. And we'll just kind of have to see what happens in the future.
Although it is funny, the number of former driveline guys that they hired this offseason. Because there were more than a few.
It's definitely interesting. And I was actually asked that question on a different podcast. And I think I'm interested to see if we see any differences, but I feel like we're probably not going to be able to tell because it's going to be a lot more behind the scenes stuff. It's going to be like kind of like the training programs or like whether it be weight training with the weighted balls that Driveline really emphasizes or like things using the Rapsodo cameras that we don't really get to see. That's, I feel like, where the changes are going to be more noticeable is kind of like the processes behind the development.
Well, I can remember probably about a decade ago at this point, hearing through the grapevine that like one of their late round picks was really upset because the team wouldn't let him work with the weighted balls because they didn't believe in it at that point. And now that's like normal and it's a thing they do. We've seen them doing that.
You see them during spring training out there.
During camp. So, all right, our last question is from Tyler, who says, what do scouts need to see to assign an 80 grade on an individual tool? Can you give an example on power, speed, fastball, breaking ball, hit? Thanks for all you both do. Very easy on speed. It's literally just home to first time.
Yeah, there's a scale.
That's easy.
That translates.
Fastball, velo, Same thing.
Yeah, velo. Well, this is the thing that's weird about fastball is like there's technically two different grades for a lot of people give two different grades for a fastball. There's like there's a
Velo and
fastball velocity grade, which is linear. It's like if you're 98 to 100, it's an 80, blah blah blah. Then there's a quality grade, which is or like a command. It depends. It varies from who you talk to. Quality
It's everything
command, just
else.
overall, which is like which well, it also includes velocity, but it's like the entire picture. Because like there's a lot of pitchers who throw really hard who don't have 80 fastballs because they have like 30 command and it's straight as an arrow, for example. Like your fastball can play below its velocity.
Sure.
Power is pretty easy too.
Home runs.
Like raw power is just how far can you hit the ball?
Yeah.
Like you literally go to batting
yeah.
practice and watch them and see how far they can hit it. Game power is a little different, obviously, because that's hit tool dependent and kind of like
Well, that's
how
home
you're.
runs. I mean, that's...
yeah. No, well, at the end of the day, it's home runs, but it also like it can vary a little bit because it's not just like how far you can hit the ball. It's like you have to factor in like how much is your power actually going to play in the game. Like that's so yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas hit tool is harder. That's like it's technically correlated with your batting average, but there's a lot that goes
there's more
into
to it.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
I wouldn't just say batting average.
No, I agree.
I think he just listed a bunch. I mean, he was talking about breaking ball. So I think there's stuff that is objectively measurable and there's stuff that is not.
It's more abstract.
Fielding grade is subjective. It has to be.
And those are the things that's why you have the scouts, because
subjective.
they're going to a bunch of games. They've seen a bunch of outings. They like it's one of those things that after a while you kind of know what an 80. Well, there are very few of them, but you know what like a 70 fielder looks like, you know what a 60 looks like, you know what a 50 looks like et cetera. It's one of those things that you just kind of develop from going to games, and you're still always learning too. Like, it's always a learning process, but yeah, some of them are easier than others to identify though, because some of them are very like obvious, whereas others are more abstract.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you kind of know, like when you see Vladdy Guerrero uncork a throw from the outfield, like, oh, that's an 80 arm. Like, okay, I see it. We're good. I've seen one throw that's an 80 arm. Like
Mason Wynn, the Cardinals shortstop, who can throw it like 100 miles an hour from shortstop.
From short,
like, that's an 80 arm.
That's an 80 arm, no question. It throw 100 accurately from short.
Yeah, right. Or compare that with like Johnny Damon or Chuck Knobloch. That's not an 80 arm. No. That's like a 20 arm. So it's like, Yeah. So that it's a lot of that is subjective. Command, like. Control you could probably tie to walks. Yeah, control's pretty easy. It's just strikes. Command is a lot more subjective. Strikes. Well, because it's a lot of it's dependent on where's the catcher set up. Because like, and I think this is the thing that often gets confused is like, just because you throw strikes doesn't mean you have good command. Correct. Like if a catcher is set up and in and you throw the pitch down and away and it's still a strike, that's not you didn't command that pitch. So that's something that is hard to judge unless I'm sure they have programs that can like track like how far the catcher's glove had to move on a certain pitch. Sure, I'm sure they've got data, but but like for publicly available stuff, that's you have to watch the games to see it. That's that's watching the games and seeing the catcher set up a way that he doesn't have to move his glove. That's good command. All right. Well, thank you all for the emails. Again, podcast@soxprospects.com. Hit us up. And with that, we are going to let you all go. I don't know if we will try. I don't think we're going to be able to record another episode before we head down to the fort, right, Ian? Just based on our conversation about schedules. We might. We might not. We've got some interesting episodes in the works, talking with some potential guests. Maybe we'll get some while we're down in the fort as well. But we're working on it. We've got some things in the mix that we hope you all will enjoy. So keep your eyes on that podcast feed. You can follow us on Twitter, follow the website on Twitter and Instagram @SoxProspects. Follow me @SP Chris Hatfield. You can follow Ian on Twitter @Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. Send us your emails. Thank you to our Patreon supporters, including our $5 level supporters. Our next crew of them that get a personal shout out are Pavel, Jordan Shabbat, Jeffrey Scruggs, Nicholas Staropoli, Mike Kawano, Chris Boulier, Curtis Waltman, Michael Stewart, Caleb Farron, and John Kane. And also want to give a shout out to our newest $5 level supporter, Stephen G. Shaw. We appreciate it, everybody. I was thinking on that off day we have in Campion, that might be Major League Day if we have nothing better to do. That could potentially work. We planned this trip and did not realize that we are down there during a total off day for both the major and minor league teams. So we're going to have to find stuff to do that day. So we'll figure it out. Maybe that'll be
Maybe we'll do like a live recording of watching the game. Watching the movie. We can include Mike and James in it too. But at any rate, keep your eyes and ears peeled. Thank you to our supporters. Thank you for everyone who spread the word. Tell your friend, tell your neighbor, tell your, your barber. Tell your barber about it. Tell your barber who happens to know Teoscar Hernandez, which happened to me recently. Thank you all for listening. Be back in your eardrums either shortly before, during, or after our trip to spring training. Baseball's here. Get excited.